and listeners, here we are, a wonderful series, and we're over halfway through. And my colleague, old friend, ex-colleague, James Wyatt, is joining me on this 6-series session. And we're now into number 4. And I pulled the topic out earlier, James. And today's topic is, should management be seen more on the ground? And I like to call it fog effect, feet on ground. Should they be seen more? Okay, that's the subject matter for today, my friend. And I know you've got many thoughts on that particular issue. So can I just jump in? In all the time now, and I've been in this industry a long time, some might even say too long, but I've been in this industry a long time. And the one thing that always bugs me is why so many people, when they get certain management positions, they disassociate with the ground and with what's absolutely going on and the people. And the underlying topic that we're talking about is people. People like to see their managers, but they like to see them there for a genuine reason, James, and not just to pop in because somebody has said you need to call into this station or whatever, but for a specific reason and following a strategic or tactical storyline that makes sense of why they're there. Not just to turn up and say, oh, how's the family, or why are those pallets on the floor, or why are you dragging that pallet along with the forks, etc. A storyline, a reason to be there.
Yeah, so good afternoon again, Chris. Nice to be back with you. I won't give you any comment if you've been in the industry too long or not. I'll probably leave that for off camera. But yeah, managers on ground or feet on ground. I know you love an acronym as FOG. Goes back to what we talked about in the very first episode that we did, where we talked about human factors and the overriding message that it is all about the people. Well, in any type of leadership role, no matter the industry that you work in, as a leader, you need to be as close to your people as possible. So I definitely do not like this whole, let's call it the ivory tower approach, where leadership teams sit in an office and they're just seen behind glass windows and so on with these closed doors and everything else. I think as leaders in any type of position, supervisory roles as well, you always need to be open, and you need to be next to your people. And not only in times of crisis, this needs to become a culture within organizations that from the top all the way through to the operational floor and all the way back again, by the way, there needs to be that transparency and that ability to be close to the people. And I think we've talked as well about caring about people. It's not just, the business side of it. At the end of the day, there is a person behind everybody, and everybody has their own challenges, their own direction. And as a leader, it's about getting the best of it as you can out of those people. As the employee, I want to see my manager on the floor, so I'm able not only to get the latest update on what's going on and the standard business stuff, but to have the possibility ad hoc to be able to ask questions. And I want to have the feeling that my leader understands the problems that I'm facing within my role, or is listening to the suggestions that I could provide for improvement, and so on. So I struggle when I see, and I have seen quite a few examples of this, where leaders do look at it as kind of a PR exercise. They'll have it on their weekly task board that I need to do an operational walk, or I need to be on the floor. Well, no. Let's be genuine about it, and let's just simply be with the people in good times and bad. However, I think we do have to be realistic that there are various factors at play in the consistency of this, whether that's cultural, right? We know across certain cultures that hierarchy is seen and is communicated to differently. If you would take, for example, China, Southeast Asia versus Western Europe or the United States, the way in which that interaction takes place physically, from a communication perspective, that all needs to be tailored. but the end result should not matter at all in terms of that, what I call engagement. So it's all about engagement, and there are various ways of doing it, and it doesn't necessarily always need to be, you know, an operational manager has to go into the warehouse, grab some steps, stand up on it, and do an ad hoc town hall meeting or something like this. It's about consistency and culture and getting it into the organization so that people see it as, you know, as the norm. And I think it's underestimated a lot by managers of the results that this actually has, because a lot of people in management, they see it as time investment, which is ultimately cost, which is ultimately they could be doing something else, you know, but they have to do it. They should do it. That's what a lot of leaders do think. There are a lot of great examples out there as well, but yeah, they would be my initial comments. But culturally, it's very important, and there are obviously on a country and a specific location level other factors, unions, for example, right? The sensitivity around unions, the sensitivity around you know, different levels of staff and structures. This obviously has to be taken into consideration. But ultimately, as a leader, there is zero excuse for engagement, and I will not accept that from anybody.
Yeah, and right. So taking cultural issues in, and I know what you're saying about the hierarchy, but all that does is it just lowers down the levels that people are expected to then interact. So you can always push it down. And also the union issues. I've never known a union yet who has said that they didn't want to see the top man on the floor, especially who can experience the conditions, the facilities, and everything. So there's nothing but positives from it. But what I do find is so disappointing, James, is everybody now, or not everybody, but an awful lot of people now, they're more interested in telling you how busy they are or how many meetings they got to go to or what their schedule is like than actually what is the critical priority of making sure that when you go to bed as the top man or a manager or a senior, whatever, that when you go home, you don't have to worry about anything. You're happy, you're satisfied, you know that your people are doing things. And that's what I don't understand. You know, time is the most valuable asset that any of us have got. You can't borrow it. You can't put it in a box. You can't gift it. You can't buy it. And once you've used it, you can't bring it back again. So why on earth make the best use of that time? And, you know, to be telling somebody as soon as they come to you, oh, you know, I'm so busy, look at my schedule. They're not interested in your schedule, because what they'll do when they turn around and say, well, you should manage your time better. That's your problem.
Yeah.
But what they want is they want clarity. They want clarity, and then they want consistency. And my feeling is, right, and we've worked in a few companies together, if you had, when every single person or a manager went to a facility, if they did at least something that was the same, all the staff, they know what it is then that management are looking for, why they're focusing on certain things. Now, if management, through town meetings, like you said, are then able to articulate why those things are so important as part of the tactical plan and overall strategy, people start to understand the story. And if you can live within a storyline, you understand why. And you don't feel that somebody just says, do this, do it there, do it when I say, and do what's expected of you. And I just feel, why not now? And we're talking about people, and everything's coming up now with anxieties, and that's a totally different subject. But why not help people feel part of something bigger and better than all this negativity that's going around? And I don't mean in our industry, I mean globally. All these things that are happening, it's non-stop. Every paper you open, every news that you put on, it's bad, 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 bad. Let's start focusing on making people feel special. Or at least if you can't make them feel special, at least make them feel that they know where they are.
Absolutely. I mean, I fully agree with many of your comments there. And again, it is all about the people, and an organization is as successful as its people. The statistics and all this stuff that we look at, you know, from a management perspective is all about the execution, which is performed by people. And as people, we spend a lot of our lives at work, right? We might work a 40-hour week. for example. This is a significant amount of time across the week, across the month, across the year, across a decade, and so on and so on. So we need to be creating the environment for people to go to work, to enjoy it, to be able to express themselves, to be able to learn something, to be able to be supported. I think we've talked quite a lot in the previous sessions about the term toolkit, right, where we talked about training and setting that foundation. This is a massive, massive part of that toolkit, and having, as management, having the ability to be able to manage those people in very different ways. We're all humans. We all need different things, and that's also in the workplace as well. We need to be perhaps managed differently to perhaps other people do, and that's based on our personalities and so on. But when we talk about, to come back to your point about bringing people on that journey, I think in one of the previous episodes we did, I talked about the example at DHL Express, who I had the pleasure of working for from 2014 to 2016. They make everybody in the company a so-called certified international specialist, and they train them specifically, not only within the areas of the function that they're executing, but also they give them all of the company information on a country, regional, and global level. They give insights and transparency to where the organization is going. So the individual is not just sitting there in their shift, and focusing on what they need to execute. They understand what they're executing is building a piece of the puzzle of the bigger journey that the organization is going to globally. What does that do? It makes them feel more valued, because they say, okay, if I'm executing this as per the company's requirements and as I've been trained, I'm having an impact. So they feel that they're adding value, and they see the bigger picture. And this was a fantastic example. Everybody had their passport, and every course that you went on, it was stamped. Yeah. If you have a DHL courier, for example, coming to your door to drop off a parcel today, and you ask them if they're a certified international specialist, they will likely smile and show you the badge or the embroidered logo that they have on their jacket. Some of them may even pull out the passport and say, here you go, here's, here are the quarters. And you just see by the look on their face and by the way that they talk about it so passionately that they feel so engaged with the company. And this is a classic example of leadership across all levels, which is consistent. It's not a tick box exercise, and the people really feel part of the journey. So the company is doing the right thing from a human perspective, but obviously from a business point of view, the business is extremely successful. The quality is high, it's consistent, they're growing, and Chris, I don't think we're talking about something here which is complicated.
It's not.
I don't think it's not difficult. It's about applying yourself in the right way. And I think as leaders, that's what some people can certainly learn.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that really frustrates living daylights at me, right, is, and in all businesses, things go wrong. Nothing's 100%. All right.
Sure.
But thank God, aviation is as close to that milestone as possible. But something goes wrong. Top customer, something goes wrong somewhere. So many people overreact. Not only do they overreact, instead of just going directly to the person or who could be responsible and get it fixed, they go to several people. And then those several people cascade it down to their people. And then it gets escalated. And all of a sudden, when you're on the floor or when you're in the thick of things, you suddenly say, I've got to do this sometime. Well, I've got to do it because somebody... And you think, what on earth is going on up there? Do you know what I mean? And that's when you get the comments from the floor where they say, if only they could come down and spend some time here with us, they'd see what was going on. And that is a sad truth, James.
Yeah, it is. It is. We've been working with one of our clients recently who have just gone through an internal restructuring where various restrictions have been put in place, which had an impact on the amount of people that were in the operation at one time, whether that was permanent staff or whether that was temporary staff on a short term level. And our advice and our approach and our implementation with the client was to get the management team, so the whole management team, as in the team that sits together at 9 o'clock every morning, that they should be as close to their teams and to their people as possible. Because when the people on the floor, the operational floor, were feeling under pressure, that's when, you know, they start to complain a bit quicker. They get frustrated, you know, because they don't understand why. And my message to them was, your people are your biggest asset. Take care of what you have, work together with them to support them, to get the best out of them, to be able to remain sustainable and consistent for as long as possible until a medium to longer term solution is found. And this was implemented, and the reaction of just that physical presence of being there was key. We even implemented in a couple of departments that the department manager went into the shift rota. Yeah, so they were performing 2 or 3 shifts a week as the duty manager or as the department supervisor. What was the impact of that? The team sat there and said, "Hey, not only does my boss know what he or she is doing, they're supporting us because we are a little bit short-staffed, so that takes an additional head in. They are demonstrating that they're competent in what they're doing." We come back to competence from the previous session, but it also enables then the employee to have a different engagement level when they're explaining their frustration, because that person is then physically in the job, they're physically doing it, they experience it for themselves and say, yeah, okay, there really is an issue here. So simple things to develop that engagement and to be closer to the team. The impact is very often totally underestimated, because as we said in the beginning, the management see it as a chore or a bit of a tick box exercise where they could be doing something else, whether it's budget planning, strategic stuff, you know, whatever, which is of course also very important. But there needs to be that balance, and the focus has to be on the people. But the interaction, Chris, and this is really my point, the interaction and the engagement with the people, it has to be genuine. The people have to feel that it is genuine, that it is not a tick box exercise, that the people care about the people. And if you're able to create that, then I think the results are absolutely, absolutely great.
100%, my friend. Genuine and care. And you brought the word caring again. And that brings me to a story, which I always love. I love a story. I remember the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, that's put so many things in place. It was during the space race when JFK was involved and he went out to NASA. And of course, JFK, everybody wanted to see him, the movie star president and everything. And they all wanted a little bit of him. And he kept walking around. Wherever he went, he seen this one particular guy who was like a janitor. And he was either cleaning up or he was sorting out or he was doing whatever. And then when it finished, they brought him down to the canteen and he gave a big speech to everybody and about why the space race was so important and what it was going to do for the US and mankind and everything. And then afterwards, they said, "Is there anywhere you'd like to go now, sir, or anybody you'd like to see?" And he said, "Yeah, I want to see that gentleman over there." And they were all shocked. It was the janitor. And he walked over and he says to the janitor, "Excuse me, sir." He said, "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm sure you know who I am." He said, "Yes, of course I do. You're JFK, the president, etc." And JFK said, "I'd like to know who you are and what do you do?" And he gave him his name and he said, "I'm helping to put the first man on the moon." And by his understanding that he was part of something much, much bigger.
Exactly.
That was so important. But if JFK hadn't have stopped and seen him doing all these things and also given a little bit of, respect and credibility, and sometimes if you do it and you do it genuinely, it has such a huge, huge, huge effect. And
it does.
That's the sort of humility and hunger that good managers now need to take on board in a different type of leadership learning moving forward.
100% agree. And I think if you're in an operational leadership role, you also tend to focus on the operational areas, whether that's office, warehouse, and ramp. If you're a ground handler, for example, that your teams are really pushing through operationally, because ultimately that's the interaction that you have with your customers. That's where you're executing the tasks based on the contracts that you have. But let's not forget, let's call it the administration side of the business and the operation, whether that's invoicing, whether that's finance, whether that's HR, all of the admin functions as well, which have lots of different levels of people within those departments. They are a big piece in the jigsaw as well, and that needs to be recognised. And as a leader, you shouldn't have to be reminded of that. That should just come naturally.
Exactly. And a good manager, a good leader doesn't just focus on his centre forward, centre midfield or goalkeeper. It's the rest of the team that help them defend, distribute and score.
And all the backroom staff and all the coaching staff and all the team at the training centre, and everybody within the club. It's a real team effort.
Yeah. So
it's all about the people, Chris.
Sorry?
It's just all about the people.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So let's hope we've got the right fog in place moving forward.
Indeed.
All right, lovely boy. That's it. Number 4, 2 to go. Look forward to seeing you, and we'll get the next 2 out of the way. And thank you again, James, for your valuable time and input as always. And the little innuendo insults are starting to reduce a little bit, so I'm even happier there.
It's all good, Chris. We've still got 2 episodes to go, so we'll see what we can do with those.
Yeah, just laying out the ground rules, mate. No, but seriously, thanks, mate. Good luck with everything, and look forward to speaking to you again shortly.